That'll work. That'll work. Okay. Hello and welcome. I am here with Jay Rosen, one of the very eclectic artists that I know that spans between digital art creation, photography, astrophotography, augmented reality, web developing, you name it, pretty much. I'm happy to have you here, Jay. Thank you for joining me here at Tampa Bay Comic Con 2013.
Hey, it's great to be back.
I know. I think we saw each other like 4 years ago back in MegaCon. It was the last time we interacted before the pandemic.
Holiday Matsuri.
Oh, that's right, Holiday Matsuri. Wow, time flies. Jay, you've been busy since post-pandemic, especially in UF, tackling things within the augmented reality. Can you tell me a little bit about what you're up to with your?
Yeah, this thing. This is so for the past 10 years, I've actually been developing my own augmented reality headsets. The Mirror Vision Wear, glass, fashion, luxury virtual reality, I call it. They're very cutting edge, low tech, and haute couture style. But with the University of Florida, I'm trying to actually create this very low cost 3D printed design that competes with Meta and Microsoft. You see, this uses a smartphone. So everyone has a smartphone, reduces the cost if you have your own smartphone, kind of like a Google Cardboard, but instead you slide to the top and you can actually see an augmented reality overlay over you. So it's like only $5 to manufacture these and does the same thing as like a $3,000 headset. So
No, that's crazy. And then you can. This is something that I believe you're trying to get UF on board to give every student one of these. Correct?
that's really my vision is for the cost to manufacture this for every student, it's like buying like 100 headsets, the top one. So it's just if we want the idea of like a future of the internet, future of metaverse, future of gaming, and everyone living in the virtual reality, it's not so much like spending $3,000 on headsets. I think that's kind of unrealistic. I think if everyone could just go to the convenience store and just buy this, almost like sunglasses, then yeah, we'll all be seeing flying sharks and
Now, I think if I remember correctly, when I met you a couple of years ago, what you had did not look like that. You've gone through different variations of the different designs of the mirrors. Can you share a little bit about? I believe the project started in 2012,
yeah,
and so
yeah.
it's been about 11, 12 years.
Yeah, it's been more than 10 years. The same material. I started with this mirrored transparent glass material. I just thought it was very interesting how you can create reflections and affinity and opacity. And the original designs I had, they were based on platonic solids like the pyramid and octahedron. And when you wear it, you see this kaleidoscopic omnipresently twisted vision of the world. You'll see things behind you, in front of you, and things to the sides, all flipped and overlaid. And when people wear it, it's like they think it's just trippy and it was cool. But at the same time, it was like this fashionable thing because you're wearing your environment. And it was always this collaboration with people just wanted to try it on or take photos
Right.
with it. And so, yeah, it's evolved from being this geometric to now very lightweight, 3D printed. Um,
So I'm guessing when I photographed you back at MegaCon, to me, when you were wearing all the different mirrors and whatnot, you were looking at something pretty trippy. Is that essentially the case here?
Sometimes it depends on the lighting. That's the thing. It changes. If there's lighting inside of it, I'll see infinity. Like I'll see myself millions of times. If you take the light outside of it, then I can see the world kind of collapsing on itself.
So why mirrors? What's the motivation of taking that approach? It's got to augment your reality or affect your senses, no?
So I've been an artist all my life. When I went to UF, I was doing traditional art, drawing, painting, and I got really interested in this new emerging genre called light art, where people were using technologies like LEDs and projectors and mirrors to use natural light to create experiences and like activate sensations in ourselves. And that's why I realized like when you actually play with the world of optics and nature, we're experiencing the world in a whole new way and new perceptions. And I love this idea of augmenting our perception to see the world anew.
No, that's interesting. That's interesting. And as far as I know, this project has not only been here in Florida, but it's been showcased all around the U.S. I think even as far as up in Oregon. Correct?
Oh yeah, yeah. Mirror Vision Wear did a collaboration with the band Time, synthpop band Time. They're based in Gainesville. We've done over 150 shows all over America, all the major cities, Canada. And again, that's what I mean. It's a collaboration where the band would wear the Mirror Vision headsets and they would just hand it out to people and they would dance. And you see people just wearing it in random places. And also created a geodesic mirror dome that they would assemble and collapse and just allow people to play around in mirrors.
I think, if I remember correctly, I saw something down in Miami that you brought this with you. What kind of augmented reality showcasing happened down there? Or what can you tell me about that particular expo that was down there?
Yeah, so recently I just went to a Miami NFT hackathon. I brought this with me. I've been all these hackathons are fun because it gives you like 2 days to just try and build a brand new app. So in Miami, I actually uh, created 1,000 augmented reality designs using Midjourney. So I'm using
Okay.
AI to create the imagery. And in Miami, essentially I had the idea of what if each of these images or is an NFT, and when you own the NFT, it unlocks its own virtual reality experience that only the owner of the NFT can see. So kind of this idea of like a digital clothing mixed with a physical aspect.
That's awesome. That's awesome. It's such a new world for me. I started poking around in it and it's pretty interesting, especially with the affordability because I think, if I'm not mistaken, Facebook uses very similar glass technology, right? But they just hack up the price, make it very difficult to afford just to the average user.
Exactly. That's the thing is 10 years ago, I was playing with this. I was so fascinated with mirrored, transparent plastic. And I would always cut up all my own sculptures. And I'm like, I've been doing this for the past 10 years. I'm known as like the mirror guy. And then I'm looking at the new headsets that are coming out from Microsoft and Meta and Apple. And it's like, that's my glass headset. So I'm like, I'm going to do it better than them and just charge way less because I'm not all for profit. I'm just trying to show everyone a new way to see the world.
Well, that's awesome. That's awesome. There's a project that I came across that you're hoping to tackle at some point, which is the Underworld project. I know it's a big project. I think it's fascinating. Can you elaborate a little bit about what that looks like and what, I don't know, what it could bring to the world? I think is interesting, especially when it comes to our ancestors. So I'll let you talk a little bit more about it.
Yeah, underworld technology is the idea that if you were to go to like a graveyard, you can wear a headset like this and using AI and public record data, essentially recreate the people that are actually there. You know, recreating our ancestors, the dead, and so that way we can communicate with them and have conversations. The truth is, there are probably more dead people than living people, which means
True.
it's a bigger network than Facebook. If you were to map out every single graveyard using AI and machine learning and augmented reality. So it's kind of this idea, it's very ambitious. I mean, everyone will want to talk to their ancestors, right?
No, of course, I'm sure. Even with the ability of AI to recreate voice, video, and imagery, I think it's definitely doable as time passes. And honestly, I think it'll be good not only for people who are wanting to get the knowledge from our ancestors, but also maybe could be its own coping mechanism to some extent as well. So um, I'll keep a lookout for that one. All right, photography. I want to talk a little bit of photography. It's my realm. Outside of all this augmented reality, Jay also does some fantastic astrophotography work in addition to regular photography. Although we met through cosplay, I got a chance to see the full extent of his artistic journey through his Instagram. So I'll make sure to put all the information so you can follow his work. But tell us a little bit about what got you into astrophotography, because I remember you started a while ago and I saw the progression and the different things, all the inexpensive tools you had to buy to be able to pull off what you do. But tell us, how did it go from the mirrors to cosplay to astrophotography?
That's actually, yeah, how it went from the mirror wearables to the cosplay. So when I was creating my headsets and my fashion wear, I'm like, well, let me bring it to a Comic Con. And so I started, that's like on the cosplay. Cause I'm like, oh, this is actually kind of fun to recreate these characters. And then I started encountering photographers like you and got interested in like, oh, I want to do photography. I want to do these photo shoots. So I got a camera and I was working with a OMP Edge magazine and Amplitude magazine and was going to blog the Tokyo Olympics in 2020. So I got all my camera gear, 300 millimeter lens, and this Sony A60 600. And then a week after I got my camera,
Something happened.
the lockdowns happened. Every event got canceled. So it's like, all right, I just bought this camera. What am I going to test it on? So I started photographing the moon, shooting the moon. And I noticed I can see the craters of the moon. I can see the mountains just with like a 300 millimeter lens on a tripod. And that fascinated me because I'm like, all right, well, if I can see the moon, what else can I see? So I pointed at the brightest star, Jupiter, which is a planet. And it's like next to it weren't stars. Those were moons. I saw the moons of another planet in my photo. I'm like,
Wow.
It was just mind blowing. I posted it at the south, and then I could see the Milky Way. And from there, it's just like the camera is revealing the universe to me, and by playing with the camera and the settings, you can see more and more. And it was just really a deep rabbit hole of getting into the universe.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. I'll share some of the images because they're fantastic. Um, Now, tell me, if somebody were to start to poke around with astrophotography, if you can go back and give yourself some advice, you're starting out, what would you recommend that they use to capture some great astro photographs?
So in starting out, if you have a DSLR camera, like a 16 millimeter lens, just a wide lens, that's great for taking a Milky Way photo. If you have something like a larger aperture, like f2.8, f2, f1.4, that's even better. You really want to get a lot of light collection when you're doing your photos for long exposure. So like to start like taking a Milky Way photo, like just on a tripod, you set your camera up, download an app so you have an idea where the Milky Way actually is, and then just point your camera there, set it for like a 10-second exposure, and maybe like the ISO 2000, and of course your widest aperture, and then try and take as many photos as you can in the same exact spot. So like if you have an intervalometer, or you can set it to just take photos every 10 seconds, that's perfect. You get like 10 minutes of photos, 10 seconds each. In post-processing, you can then stack these photos,
Right.
because the single photo you can only see so much, but when you take more photos, more data collected, you can remove the noise and you can start to really see the color and the detail of the cosmos.
I think there's a photo of the moon that you took that was a stacked photo, right? How many photos did that take?
Oh, the moon photos? The moon photos are usually just one photo. Um, but yeah, if I'm like, there are ways to take photos of the moon and stack it. Like you can take it with the different phases of the moon, such as a full moon, or because the thing about the moon is, even though most people want to take photos of it just when it's a full moon, it's actually more interesting to photograph it when it's in these other phases, because you can see the shadows create more depth in the craters and actually more detail.
Nice, nice. Now, I believe you modified or had your camera modified to be able
Yeah,
to do more with it. So what is that? What did you do? What does it do for you?
I'll show something. So when I take off my lens, so this is more, yeah, the advanced part. If you get really into astrophotography, you can have your camera modified. So this is a piece of glass that I actually had.
This is terrifying, Jay. Just so you know.
I know. Yeah, of course it is. Yes. I'm just used to it now. So I actually had my this piece of glass removed, and what this is a UV IR blocker, because when a digital camera, when it's created, it actually can see beyond the visible color spectrum, infrared and ultraviolet. That looks very strange. It looks like orange and red color, which is not right. So that's why they install that piece of glass on top of it, so we take normal looking color. However, when you have it removed, it can see more color, which is perfect for astrophotography. So that way I can see the true chemistry of the cosmos, where there's hydrogen and oxygen, which you can actually see with a full spectrum camera. And you can apply different filters to isolate it. So that way I can only see the hydrogen alpha, which is like that red color in nebulas. As well as you can also attach infrared filters like infrared 720 nanometer or infrared 780 nanometer to see like really interesting ghostly images of landscapes.
Nice, nice. Um, are you have any plans to explore any other type of photography that appeals to you right now, or are you going to just keep exploring astro for the time being?
Astro's been a lot of fun. I've done a lot of action photography, especially now that we're coming more out of lockout. Really going into like these events, like to try and practice photographing people,
Yeah.
portraits, and kind of like this podcast is probably the future.
Yeah, I don't know what's been happening behind us, but I'm sure some pretty clever and creative cosplays are here. Speaking of cosplay, I know you've done we've did some photo shoots together. My favorite one of yours, I think, is going to have to be Solid Snake, because I went out of my way, stopped at Walmart, and got you a box just so we can do the box picture. So hauling around a box in MegaCon was priceless. I don't know how many hours I held it, but that's my favorite one. Which one would you think is your favorite, or perhaps which one required the most ingenuity for you?
The Solid Snake was a lot of fun. I mean, he's just such a fun video game character. I got to meet Kiefer Sutherland and David Hayter as Snake
Nice.
and do photo shoots with them. Um, my favorite cosplay, the one that was most difficult, was actually this Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild cosplay. This Barbarian Link armor set. It took me 3 months to create it.
Jesus.
And the way it was created was actually I sculpted the skull helmet out of clay, and that took like a few weeks. But then it was like 20 pounds, and it's like that's too heavy to put on your head. So I had to pour silicone resin and create casted molds from it, so that way it'd be lighter weight. So I had to actually create the sculpture and then recreate it, and then do all the weathering. And then that was just yeah, it took 3 months to create, showcase that holiday Matsuri right before the pandemic.
Yeah, I think that's the one that I skipped, but I did see that, and that looked pretty pretty intricate. What advice would you give to anybody that's starting out in cosplay? Are there any? I know YouTube's a great resource, obviously, but are there any particular people that you follow? Anybody that helped you when you were coming up with these different designs?
Well, I got to meet Lightning Cosplay. That was the one I was following her tutorial online to create the barbarian skull armor for her case, Monster Hunter. So Lightning Cosplay is great. Camu Cosplay, all these YouTube channels are really helpful in how to create cosplay with foam or sewing. I think EVA foam is a really great material to work with, especially when starting out. The very first cosplays I did, I would use a software called Papakura, which is this free software where you can take a 3D model and it will slice it up into essentially a template that you can print out, cut up, and fold, and to create essentially a full armor or full costume. And then take your paper cutouts and put it onto foam, cut out the foam, and foam is just so easy to work with. You can use a heat gun to shape it in different ways and paint it. Foam is so much fun.
Want to ask you something? You have a shirt there from Earthworm Jim, old game, great game. Why are you wearing this shirt? What's happening today? Tell us.
So Earthworm Jim is coming back. We think you said back in 1995. It's almost 30 years since Earthworm Jim came into our existence. I grew up with him, and he's a great character. So I work with Interplay Entertainment. I help them create their officially licensed merchandise that we just launched on Amazon today.
Nice.
So we have a lot of Earthworm Jim T-shirts and hoodies and all these different characters. Spent a lot of time going through the old cartoons and the video games to extract him and to bring him into the 2023, as it were.
That's interesting for people that are familiar with the character. Not many know that Jim was voiced by the same actor or talent that did Homer Simpson, right?
Yes.
Dan, I can never say his last name, but it's really fun. It's a really fun game, really creative. And if I got it correctly, it's beyondthegroovy.com. That's the website.
Beyond the Groovy, yeah, Beyond the Groovy is the upcoming television series. So there is a reboot in the works with Interplay. We are working on Earthworm Jim Beyond the Groovy. Essentially, Earthworm Jim, again, he's like it's kind of like as if Superman or an astronaut was an earthworm. It's kind of a silly concept. It's really weird, but he's such a cartoony character because he is a worm. Like he can use his head as like a jump rope or a grappling hook, and he's exploring outer space looking for delicious dirt on different planets.
Though he loves Earth. Earth dirt is the best.
The dirt on Earth is the best.
Question, just so people know, do you have any upcoming projects? I know you were looking to do something with holograms and whatnot, but what's in the horizon for you in terms of what's next for you?
I think holograms, yeah. So ever since I started using like Midjourney to create artwork with AI, I've been using it to really create art a lot faster. I can create a lot of concept art. I just created this concept art of like a $400 million renovation to the University of Florida football stadium to install this 200-foot hologram of an alligator for the halftime shows. And I love the idea of creating holograms and experimenting with projectors to create these volumetric spatial sculptures that people can interact with, kind of like a video game, like kind of really trying to bring this new mode of art that can transcend just a painting or a drawing as this new animated live reconstructions.
Awesome, awesome. Jay, if people wanted to see your work, what would be the best place to go? Would that be Instagram, YouTube? What would be some
My,
places where they can find you?
my website, jrosen.design. It's the same handle I have on Instagram, jrosen.design.
Well, I'm really happy you got to join me today, Jay. This is really informational, especially everything about augmented reality. I don't think this is going to be our last conversation, but for the time being, thank you for coming, and we look forward to our next interview very soon, man.
Thank you.
Hello there. I know the interview ended a bit abruptly, and that's because we had to rush out of there to make it to a panel that we were teaching at Tampa Bay Comic Con. Nonetheless, I want to thank Jay for taking the time to talk to us, and I would like for you to support his work by going to his sites at jrosen.design. That's on Instagram, jrosen.design, as well as his webpage. Until then, take care.